I'm the director of the Teaching and Learning Laboratory at MIT. We do research into particularly STEM education in the university level, and we've also been involved in many of the innovations in education at MIT since probably about 2000. And that's what this panel is going to talk about and address, innovations in education. So I've been teaching for about 40 years, and I can tell you that I have never seen as much interest in education and in innovation and in technology as I've seen in the last 10 years on the MIT campus. So I'm very happy to be able to talk to you about some of that. We have 4 other panelists. Each of us come at this topic in a very specific way. So you're going to get quite a broad view of innovation in education, both here in the US and in China. I've asked each of, that's okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Technology always gets in the way. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to talk for about 5 to 7 minutes on what he or she is involved in education and technology, and then we want to hear from you. So we hope to spend most of the session answering your questions. There's a great deal of expertise sitting here, and hearing what you think will be the most important innovations in education over the next 5 and 10 years. So I'm going to just briefly introduce each of the panelists, and I've already asked the Chinese panelists to please forgive me for the pronunciation of their name. To my left is Tomer Rothschild. Tomer is the co-founder of Elite Scholars of China, a boutique advisory firm which helps China's top high school students achieve their academic potential during the high school admissions process. To his left is Yeri Kim. Yeri is currently the head of testing and certification services at EF Education, and she has been involved in public schools in the Washington, D.C. area. Yunan Wu?
Yeah, right.
Okay, is the founder of Imagination Education, beginning in 2013, and is currently the CEO and Manager General of the company. And Toon Shao is the co-founder of 17, now I'm lost.
17 作业.
AKA Homework Together, the largest online homework platform for K-12 students in China. And I'm very pleased to say that one of his partners is one of my former students. So I'm going to turn it over to Tomer to talk a little bit, and then we'll each go down the line and then come back to the audience.
Hi. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So good morning. My name is Tomer Rothschild, and I'm one of the co-founders of Elite Scholars of China, or we just abbreviate it as ESC. I thought I'd talk about 3 points today. One is a little bit about what we do at ESC. The second one is how we view innovation and what we're doing at the company. And the third one, if we have time, is a little bit of perspective or advice on innovation. So just to share with you a little bit more about what we do, we're not really a technology company. We are a consulting company. And we provide counseling services to China's top students that are China's top high school students that are looking to go to America's best colleges. So it's sort of like a McKinsey or a BCG of college counseling in China. We're quite small, so we've always prided ourselves on being beautiful rather than being very big. And that trade-off and those questions are things that we think about all the time. We do 3 things at ESC. One is we provide college counseling services. So what that means is helping students apply to colleges, figure out what schools to apply to, how they think of themselves and how they express themselves in the application process. That's college counseling. That's really the core of our business. The second part is we help students with standardized tests, most notably the SAT and the TOEFL. And the third is we have college tours where we take small groups of students to visit American universities. We're really working with the top students in China that are trying to go to the best universities in America. When we quantify that, what it means is that about a third of our students are going to the top 10 schools in America, and then the next third are going to the top 20 schools. So 2/3 of our students go to the top 20 schools in America, and then the rest are going to, sort of, even though the ranking is imprecise and not really a good measure of the school quality, but we use it because that's sort of the common standard, all of our students go to the top 50 schools. So that's a little bit more about what we do.
Sorry. I just want to
Sure.
know how many students do you work for in 1 year?
Sure, thank you.
You want to just say what the
Yeah,
question
so
was in case.
I'll repeat the question. So the question was how many students do we work with in a year? So this year we're working with just under 100 students.
Beautiful people.
Yes, 100 beautiful students. Actually, I'm only going to speak for 5 minutes, so let me just finish and then I'll answer questions afterwards. So a lot of our work has been recognized and we've been profiled in the New York Times as well as in Bloomberg, so that's great recognition for the type of work that we do. Let me talk to you a little bit more about how we view innovation and how we see our market. So you have a lot of Chinese students coming to America for college. That's really no surprise. If I share with you the numbers, it'll be sort of shocking though. Right now there's about 100,000 Chinese undergraduates in America. That's the #1 foreign student population in America. It's not only #1, it's larger than #2, 3, and 4 combined. So it's astonishingly high. And it's growing at about 20 to 30% every year. This has been going on for the past 5 years. So it's really a lot of students. That's the big part. So it's very big. And that's honestly where most of the players in China focus on. They really get seduced and swallowed up by the concept of being big. And they never really think about the quality. They're just focused on the quantity. So what do I mean? In China, we have this thing called an educational agent, in Chinese, a 中介. Many of you may know what a 中介 is, and perhaps you even spoke to one or used one on your way over here for university. So a typical 中介 is just an agent. And when we looked at what these companies do, we realized that they were not educational companies. They were really just logistics companies. So what do I mean by logistics? Logistic companies move things from one place to another. But in the process of being moved, the thing doesn't improve and the thing doesn't change. So when you ship something using FedEx or DHL, you just hope that it stays the same and gets from here to there. And when Chinese students use an agent, they just get shipped and moved from one place to another. The good itself, the student isn't viewed as a student. There's no talk of potential, there's no talk of education, there's no talk of change. It's just being moved. And we saw that and we thought this was really silly. And we had some inspiration because we looked at some research by a professor at HBS named Thomas Eisenman, and he was talking about something called a two-sided market. So a two-sided market is where there's two distinct groups of users, and these groups of users can work in a virtuous cycle to help each other grow the market. And there's different elements of pricing, there's different elements of marketing, but if you think about something like Xbox users and Xbox developers, or people that write with Adobe software, people that use Adobe, there's many different business models that are really exploiting and looking carefully at the two-sided market. We looked at this phenomenon of Chinese students coming to America, and we saw a two-sided market. The 中介, the agents were just focusing on Chinese students and just seeing them as goods to be moved across the ocean. And what we saw is that actually the real need was with the American universities. American universities, the top university like MIT or like Harvard or other ones of that nature, get over 1,000 applicants a year, 1,000 applications a year from China. And a school like MIT or Harvard will take about 10 or so. So 10 out of 1,000. That makes it about 10 times harder or more to be accepted from China than it does from America. And it's already hard enough to be accepted in America. So really, what we saw is that the difficulty was not moving lots of people over here. Rather, it was about how to help the schools do their selection process. And so what we have really looked at is two sides of the market. We talk to universities, and we help universities understand who are the top students, and at the same time, we're helping those students come to America and learn through the process of applying and writing their essays. We only get paid by students and their families, but at the same time, even though the schools are not paying us, we still view them as our customers. We view them as our customers because we're working with a different currency. It's not the type of currency that you hold in your wallet. It's something much more intangible. We call that trust. And having that trust between the schools, the universities, and us allows us to make recommendations to the schools and allows us to work in a very unique and innovative way because we really become a partner to the school to help them identify the best students. And so this trade-off between big and beautiful is something that we're always looking at. Again, we see this as a massive wave of big. There's too many students that are coming over. It doesn't seem to be ebbing. It'll continue for at least the next decade or so. But what we really focus on is the beautiful. And what we really think about is how to find the best students. That's what excites us. We love what we're doing. We think it's really exciting to be working with top students in China. And the students that we work with are exceptional. And really, it's amazing to see how great they are and how hard they work. And that's what makes us work very hard on their behalf to help them achieve their dreams. I want to just offer some perspective, so I want to tell you how we got started with this. When we started the company about 4 years ago, prior to that, my business partner, who's actually also my wife, so it's a life partner and a business partner, we had both been alumni interviewers. And what it means is we would interview students who were applying to our respective alma maters. We would interview them as volunteer alumni. And I'm telling you this because I want to provide some advice. We didn't do this because we thought we would start a business. And we didn't do this for any money. We were just volunteering as alumni. We did it because we liked our schools. But through that process of interviewing so many students, we saw that they really had needs. As the alumni interviewer, our job is actually to help the school select students and mostly to reject the students that come our way. And when we saw all these great students, we said, damn, what if we could help them instead of having to select them and sift them out, what if we could help them? What if we see the potential in them, but as an interviewer, you're not allowed to change anything. You're just there to observe and to write comments and to send an interview report. What if we could help them? And so the advice that I want to offer from that is that as you think about companies that you're thinking of starting or different businesses that interest you, look at all of the activities that you're doing and look at all the things that you do outside of work or outside of school, because often the inspiration that you're going to have and the things that will take you forward are the things that you really love, which usually come from your activities, rather than something that just comes from your daily job. So for us, it was something that we were doing as a passion that was outside of our daily work. We both had different jobs, but our passion that we had for helping students go to college, we used that passion and made that into our profession. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to have each of the panelists speak, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Yuri?
Sure. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Well, it's actually, first of all, I just want to say it's great to be back on campus. It's been almost 10 years since I've graduated from MIT, course 14. And I cannot believe that it's already been 10 years. So use your time wisely while you're in school. Just a quick, brief introduction about me. And today I want to talk to you very briefly about 3 topics. First is the company that I work for right now, which is EF Education First. And secondly, I want to talk to you a little bit about the English language assessment market, particularly the size and what we think we can do in terms of disruption for the language certification industry. And lastly, I want to introduce you again very briefly to the latest innovation that has come out of EF Education First when it comes to English language testing and certification. First of all, I have been at EF for about 4 years, and before working for a private sector company in education, I was actually an investment banker. And in between being an investment banker and someone that's working in education innovation, I had actually worked in the public sector in Washington, D.C., really mostly to learn about the issues that are arising in the education sector for the most needy. In other words, those who don't have the means to pay for special services that, for example, Tomer is providing, or have the means to pay extra money for private tutoring, etc. So my personal interest in education comes from being able to serve the vast majority of the people who don't have that kind of privilege. And so personally, when I was thinking about my career opportunity at EF Education First, which was essentially a private sector company which was only catering to people who could actually pay for these extra services, I was very torn. But what actually made me make the jump from the public sector to the private sector was this project that I've been working on for the past 4 years. So to briefly give you a little bit of context as to who EF Education First is, actually just a brief show of hands, how many people have heard of EF Education First? Oh, wow. So actually, we've been in China for the past 20 years, first as an English language teaching institution in local cities inside China. But before we were entering China, we were actually a global company based out of Sweden. And in fact, our history stems from taking students from Sweden abroad to learn English in a country like UK or US or Australia. And we expanded our student base from Swedish students to Greater Europe, and now, after 50 years of being founded as a company, all across the world. And in that time, we've not only expanded our range of products that we provide to students, whether that's study abroad programs or local language schools, for example, in China or Indonesia, and also online education as well. And as a company, we do more than language learning. We actually do educational travel, as well as manage and own the Hult International Business School, which is a privately owned university specializing in business education and entrepreneurship. But where I sit with my team in the EF Learning Labs is specifically in the language learning business, where design, technology, and language learning collide. I'm actually heading up a team that sits both in London as well as in Hong Kong and Shanghai to create new innovations that can actually move forward what we can do with technology in education. So just before I introduce you to what EF Standard English Test is, I want to give you a little bit of context for who we're actually trying to serve. I imagine all of you speak English. But how many of you had to take the TOEFL to be here today, or wherever you guys are studying? And I think that's pretty much everyone that had to take it because it's a requirement for university administration. So if you look at the numbers, the total number of people on a yearly basis that take this sorts of exams, whether that's a TOEFL or IELTS, which is a British version of it, is actually very, very small, in the 10 million if you estimate very, very generously. But if you compare that to the number of people that are actually learning English today, whether that's in schools, in their companies, or just on their own, that number is actually closer to 1 billion. And in fact, there's been some estimations by the British Council that in 2020, which isn't that far away, that number will probably be as high as 2 billion if you include all the developing countries that are investing very heavily into getting their students learning English from an early age. So if you think about the gap between the privileged people who have access to exams like TOEFL, both in terms of money and time and parents that may push you in that direction, versus 1 billion minus 10 million, which is something like 990, well, you can do the math. There's a huge number of people that are underserved right now in terms of knowing how good their English level is. So I introduced you earlier about my personal dilemma for working for a private sector company. One of the reasons that I jumped to the private sector was because from the very beginning, the chairman for EF told me that his goal for the EF Standard English Test was not to create another TOEFL, but to try to serve this rest of the population who doesn't actually have access to English language tests at the moment, either because of access or because of cost. So the challenge that was posed to me, and at the time I didn't have a team, it was just me, true entrepreneurship, was how do you actually build, what's the big deal with standardized English tests or standardized testing in general? Why does it actually cost so much, and why does it take so much time to build? First, understand that. And secondly, is it possible, once we understand what is involved in developing a standardized test, to put it on the internet so that we can use technology as a way to distribute it to as many people as possible? And I think one of the most important thing, the third element here, was how do we actually make it accessible from a price perspective and therefore make it free? So if you think about it in your head, there's 3 different circles that don't necessarily work very well together. A standardized test, which traditionally is very, very expensive to build and maintain and distribute. The internet, which, as you know, is an open environment, which allows for anybody to enter and take whatever information you want or upload. And this idea of making all of this for free. So how do we make it sustainable, scalable, and yet scientifically accurate was the challenge before us. And to me, even though I had hesitations about the private sector, if we could get this done, this was going to be an incredible amount of disruption for not only the testing certification industry, but also language learning in general. So it was a very interesting challenge that was brought to me, and I decided to take it on. And if you fast forward 4 years, just this last month, we've launched the very first version of our standardized English language test, called the EF Standard English Test. And we have managed to actually create a standardized test that measures as accurately as the TOEFL, that is distributed online, so you can go and take it now if you want, fset.org, and actually not have to pay for it. So what does this actually do? And what are we actually doing with this first version is really where all of the interesting stuff comes in. And I think there's a lot of things that we can talk about, whether in Q&A or individually, but I just want to give you a sense of what it means for individuals, as well as corporations and governments. So first of all, individual English language learners. As I've mentioned before, there are many hundreds of millions of people that are trying to learn English, not just in China, but also in many other places around the world, where it's precisely because it's seen as an important tool to make yourself marketable or useful or productive in a global economy. At the same time, right now there are actually many different ways that you could actually learn English if you have access to the internet for free. You have not only interesting apps that are available for you on your phone or on your devices, but there are also many rich content out there, either from EF or any other competing companies. However, what we don't have at the moment before the FSET, which is the world's first free standardized English test, is the ability to actually check accurately, both across time and compared to others, how good your English level is. So with the introduction of the FSET, what this does is, for the first time ever, actually provide you a cost-free way to measure yourself, either for your own progress or compared to others. And this, in the long term, we hope, will mean that we actually bring two things closer together. One is learning, and the other is assessment. Because at the moment, I think, we're looking at education in very sort of segmented ways. Learning happens over here, assessment happens at a test center, and you sort of have a huge gap between both exactly what you're tested as well as what you're trying to learn. And there's a lot of information, or there's a lot of complaint from both teachers and students alike, and in fact employers who are trying to employ you, that there is this gap. And so what we want to see, both in terms of evolution of the FSET and all the underlying engineering behind it, is that we're able to actually put the gap closer together between learning and assessment, such that you are actually able to learn based on your personalized, more precise personalized measurement of how much you know. Secondly, I'll very briefly.
Can we ask you to
Yeah.
just hold at that point
Sure,
and
sure.
move on to Yunnan?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And
Okay. Okay.
tell us
thank
a
you.
little bit about what you're doing.
How long? 5 minutes? How long I can talk? 5 minutes?
Sorry?
How long I can talk? 5 minutes?
5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Wu Yunong. I think Yunong in China means heavy rain, and in Shanghai, that means I and you. Yeah, that's my name. And I'm the CEO and founder of Beijing Imagination Education and SCTOnline.cn. That means I have two companies. One is BIE and the other is SCT Online. At the beginning of my speech, I would like to share a story with everyone here. Now, can you show the picture of the girl?
Yeah, I think this is also a good time to introduce myself.
Thank you.
I apologize for being late. So I will be in charge of the PowerPoints. You just let me know if,
Can you show the picture of the girl?
Yeah, let me show you my picture while I'm working on
Is
this.
it
There's a
there?
picture here.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Okay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'll go ahead.
Which picture?
Oh, yeah, this girl.
This one?
No. That girl. The first
Oh, the
page.
girl, Linda.
Yes, Linda.
All right.
Okay. The girl in the picture named Linda, and his Chinese name is Zhang Zhuo. Zhuo means excellent, outstanding in Chinese. He's a very, sometimes it's a boy's name, yeah. I met the girl 2 years ago at the spring of the 2012, and she was born in the Tier 3 city in China, located in the middle of China. That city has 6.8 million people, and the average GDP is $4,000 per year. It's not a very rich city. And at that time, we held a lecture on SAT at her school. After that lecture, she found us and told me that I do need your help. I want to go to study in American. So we arranged a mock exam for the girl and give the girl a AEA report, just like the report. Yes, that's why. Let's give girl the report, and the girl just got the score is 1,090. 1,090, okay. It's a very low score. And we tailored a course 60 hours for the girl over 6 months. And after that, the girl reached a score of 19,000, maybe 40 or 60. Anyway. And then now the girl in Brandeis now. I think the 6 months changed the girl's life, changed a lot. I think it's an amazing story. What's the power can change the girl's life? From our side, we think it's the power of individualized education. So I want to share a concept with everyone here. We call it DIRTS. Oh, DIRTS is not a good word. DIRTS, D means data, and I means information, R means resources, and the S means solution. That means we always face the situation, education situation like this, rich data, but poor information. Mass resources, but less solutions. Between the data and the information, between the resources and the solution, in the middle of them, the most important thing is analysis engine. We call it AEA. AEA means Academic Essentials Assessment. It's a kind of software system. We built a system from 5 years ago, or maybe 4 years, 3 quarters ago. That time we built a system with 4 guys. The first is me. The other is a Chinese from LSE, graduate from LSE. The third guy is Jonathan Hagan. You know the guys. Graduate from Wesley and now just graduate from Wharton Business School this summer. Yeah. And another guy is a Chinese boy, don't know any English, but know China market very well. We 4 guys gathered a business in a 50 square meters office. The building name is Jinqiu Dasha. Jinqiu means beautiful autumn. And we start our business. Now, 4 years and 3 quarters past, I have 80 guys in China and 7 branches in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Zhengzhou, and Changsha. Even another one in Hefei. And we focus on provide the service to students that give them the academic assessment, give them the report, and try to tailor the course for the students. That's what we're doing. And if you want to know more information, you can visit the www.iset.com.cn. You can know our AEA system there. And if you want to try, you can visit www.setonline.cn. And last month we released SAT Online app. You can test yourself, use it, test yourself, even iOS edition and Android edition. And next month we will release another website, www.aeaonline.cn. We will tell some yes, this is the app looks like, yeah. And you can get more information about AEA from the www.aeaonline.cn. That's it. And if you want to know more about the data and how AEA works, you can find the book 2014 SAT China White Book. We released it last month, and there are 4 parts of the content tell you the different from the China students and the international students. What's the difference? We run our data, and after our analysis, give the report. That's it.
Thank you. Dun?
Okay. Hi. I'm Dun from Homework Together, 一起作业. I have a disclaimer. Firstly, if my English doesn't seem as fluent as the other speakers, then it must be because of jet lag. Secondly, I spent my undergraduate and graduate times in Cambridge, but mostly in the UK. I spent 1 year here on a Cambridge-MIT exchange program, but I didn't take the presentation course by Dr. Breslow. So I hope this is a chance that she can give me some advice on my presentation, but excuse my bad presentation. So firstly, some introductions on Homework Together. We're a very young company. We were launched in October 2011, just about 3 years ago. And I have a video prepared to show our launch. I wonder, Jason, whether you can show the video?
I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you. There's no sound, so I'll do the sound.
Well, that's because I didn't turn on the volume.
No problem, no problem. Yeah.
Let's try this again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
All right. It's much better than my sound.
Which means that each teacher has to manage up to 130 students and 47 classes on average. They also have to provide personal feedback on the students' homework. It is almost an impossible job for them to correct pronunciation of students one by one. However, the entire situation has been changed by the Homework Together project. What is Homework Together? A platform, concept, and technology
我们教培顾问。
Compatible teaching concept and advanced personal learning method can improve the learning efficiency. Homework Together uses world-leading technology. The one-to-one psychoacoustic technology from Silicon Valley is now serving Chinese students. Standardized pronunciation training allows each child to have its own English tutor. The personal error identification technology, the powerful cloud computing system, as well as the academic record tracking curve, provide strong technical support for students when learning different knowledge points and question types. The open homework platform, the advanced learning concept, together with the leading technology, makes homework stress-free for the 700,000 teachers and more than 80 for the 100 million students. Homework Together realizes the education equality dream in China.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Thank you. So this is a video that was made about 3 years ago, just about when we started. Since we started, we actually didn't have time to make such kind of videos anymore because they take some time and money to make, and they don't really generate educational value to the students. So my sharing today is actually a specific around the topic called From E-Learning to I-Learning, because we're in a forum that's focused on innovation, and innovation starts with the letter I. And this panel is actually also on innovations in education. And my view, or our view on innovations in education is that we should change from a traditional method of combining learning with electricity, so-called e-learning, to combining learning with innovation, what we have called I-learning. And I'll share with you our views on I-learning. Next slide. Okay, well, sorry, previous slide. Thank you, Jason. The speech technology works perfectly here. Yeah, so there are 5 I's here: interactive, interesting, intimate, individualized, and immediate, which are all very self-explanatory, that's the word? Yes, all very easy to understand. Next slide. I'll go through them one by one very quickly. So we are an online homework platform for K-12, which is a specific audience for education between the age of 6 and 18. So some of these ideas may not be applicable to, say, university level or graduate level students, but I think most of the idea will be applicable. For example, this one. We think that learning should be more interactive than it is today. The average span of attention for a student is less than 20 seconds for primary school students. And I think for university students, I don't know about you, but when I was in university, it was definitely less than 2 minutes. So if the lecture was not interesting, after 2 minutes, I fall asleep. And that's the problem with most kind of online methods. It's difficult to make it engaging and make it interactive. But we think this is crucial. And that's why instead of making one product that's aimed at just students, we have made a 3-way platform of teachers, students, and parents, where students are organized in real classroom-based social networks, and the activities are driven by teachers and also monitored by the parents, so that not only is the process of education interactive, but also the whole network of education interactive. Next slide, please. We think this is also a very easy to understand point called interesting. Students don't like to study, they like to have fun. And the difference between having fun and studying is that having fun is more interesting. But our view is that study can be interesting too. So we have done something to make study more interesting. For example, students accumulate virtual coins, what we call study peas. After homework, the better you do your homework, the more peas you have. You can exchange peas for real goods, like pencils, rubbers, or some little toys. Like a Angry Bird keyring. You can exchange them for real, virtual goods as well. In our platform, every student has an avatar. You can change your clothing, you can change your hairstyle, you can grow wings as an angel, you can have a Gucci bag if you want. Obviously, the Gucci bag would cost more than other bags.
How about then the wings? Does the Gucci bag cost more than the wings?
Well, I think being an angel investor is the most costly of all. So, and you can also PK with other students. You can cooperate and have competitions with other students, all to make the process more interesting. But that's not enough. The most interesting thing is to actually combine interesting content with education, not just the side rewards of education. So that's something we're working on as well. Next slide, please. If I have to summarize education in one word, I would use the word love. I think to educate a child is to love him or love her, and that's the only key, the only secret to education. And to love, you have to have an intimate relationship, and that's not so good in the current education system, at least in K-12 in China. A traditional homework cycle is that a teacher leaves homework in a class to a class of something like 50 students, and students go home. They do the homework very lonely. They spend about 2 to 3 days in a lonely environment. And they finish the homework, they hand the homework to the teachers. The teachers mark the homework, then return to the students. The students review the markings also in a very lonely environment, and we don't think that's correct. We think that the students should be nurtured, and they should be loved, even in a process like homework, which is not so interesting traditionally. So we think that a classroom of students should work together. They should cooperate with each other on their homework. They should also compete with each other. They can compete with students from other schools across the nation or even worldwide as well. The teachers and parents, they should also form intimate bonds using information technology to communicate with the students, whether during the, both during the process of homework and also during the other parts of the learning process. Next slide, please. We think this is one revolution that information technology is going to bring to education, which is individualization. There's been a dream for education that every child should receive education that's specifically tailor-made for this child. And we think this 1,000-year dream could be made possible by technology. We are already doing it. With the help of big data, we can do it better. And there are so many things I want to share here, but time is limited. So next slide, please. We also think that one revolution in education is with immediate feedbacks. So like the example I gave on the homework cycle, the feedback loop was something like a week for one question. But the feedback loop should be instantaneous. The student should be able to explore individualized worlds online and explore by his or her own pace and interest in the world, rather than by duck feeding kind of techniques traditionally. So we should be able to generate individualized reports to parents and teachers and students so that they can receive immediate feedbacks on the homework and other learning activities that they have done. Next slide, please. There are two other I's in innovation that I haven't included here, but since there are so many wonderful talents in the audience, I'd also want to share them. One is intelligent, where you change information to knowledge and then to wisdom. Currently, most education focuses on changing information to knowledge, but not the second step of changing knowledge to wisdom. That's what intelligence means. And the second thing is international. We believe that education will be more international. And the world will become a village, and every child would be able to access content from around the world. So that's right, yes. 7 Eyes altogether. We have acquired over 8.5 student users in the last 3 years. All the provinces in China have our users, except for Taiwan, but our view is that whatever Taiwan thinks, it will be the same color as China sooner or later. Next slide, please. There's a huge market ahead of us. There are over 200 million K-12 students in China, over 10 million teachers in public schools, and over 400 million parents in China. We currently cover primary school Chinese literature, math, and English homework, and we have an app called 口袋学社 in both iOS and Android that does all subject K-12 self-learning for China. But there's so many things to do. Next slide, please. The monetization landscape is huge as well. With such a huge user base and very strong demand for education products, we think there is unlimited money to be earned here. These are just 3 examples of the currently existing education industries in China. First one is an SMS service where teachers send text messages to parents, and the current market size is about $2 billion US. Second one is published curriculum materials. Our view is that curriculum materials will become O2O, where books will become individualized worlds. And this market will get bigger. The current size is about $10 billion US. We think it will be at least $20 billion US in 3 years' time. And the third market is after-school tutoring, okay? Which is the biggest K-12 education market. The current size is about 20 billion US, including academic and art-related one-to-one tutoring. And this process will be fragmented and accelerated by the internet as well. These are not the only markets that we can monetize in. There will be many other markets like selling real goods or recommending students to use services by Tomer, for example, by Yeri, by Yuno. There are many potentials for monetization. Next slide, please. Thank you. These are my contacts. I have a colleague, Jingwen. Could you please stand up? Yeah, there's Jingwen, who is also a graduate of MIT. She is head of our BD here. Both our emails are there, and you can add our WeChat as well. Thank you.
So I want to thank all of the panelists. This panel was scheduled to be over, I believe, at 5 to 12. We're just at noon now, but Jason tells me that we can keep the room for a little longer.
If you guys do have questions, then yes, we will have this.
So what I was going to suggest is that for those of you who have someplace else to go at noon, please feel free. For those of you who would like to ask questions, to please stay. I think we're all happy to stay for a while and talk with you. So, yes, sir.
So I have a question for Mr. Rothschild. So I noticed that you mentioned that you recommend some of your students.
You know, I'm sorry, there is a microphone right behind you, and that would be great.
Okay.
It would be great if you could introduce yourself, just what's your name, where you work, or where you go to school, and then, of course.
Is it working?
Yeah, there it's working.
Is it working?
Yep.
So I'm currently undergrad sophomore at Columbia University, and I'm unemployed because I'm a student. So I just have a question for Mr. Rothschild. So it's a bit weird. Anyway, so I noticed that you mentioned you would recommend some of your students and your clients to the admission officers at some selective universities. And you think that in this way you can help build a bridge that connects the talented Chinese kids with the admission office. But I think this actually sounds a bit immoral and unfair to me, because as you know, many disadvantaged Chinese students are not financially capable of hiring a paid agent or consulting company like your company. And in this case, the highly talented students may not necessarily reach out to a consulting service. And in contrast, only those who are pretty rich have the privilege to hire an agent or a consultant. So if you make an insider recommendation for you students to colleges, then it gives me the impression that you are somehow giving further unfair advantages to those who are already privileged. So how do you think about this issue?
Can you hear me?
I can't either, but I speak loudly.
So thank you for your question. I think you had an assumption in there that was all your own and wasn't based on what I said. So let me clarify. We work on behalf of our clients, but we work on behalf of our clients in the same way that your Columbia professors work on your behalf and teach you, and maybe perhaps disadvantaging all the students that don't go to Columbia because they can't attend the beautiful core curriculum lectures that you get to attend. In the same way we work on behalf of our students and our families, we also have pro bono clients every year, and we help those students get scholarships from American universities to go to school. In the past 3 years, the cumulative scholarship amount that our students have received is over $2 million. It's incredibly hard to be accepted to an American university from China, and it gets compounded when you're looking for financial aid. So we're really proud of the work that we do for all of the students, and especially proud of the work that we do for students that don't have the means to apply to pay for college themselves. And we think it's wonderful when we can make these connections between the schools and the students and help the schools sort through all of this large application pool to find the most deserving students.
Thank you. Let me go to this side of the auditorium.
Good morning, and thank you, all of you, because in your own ways you are expanding the gateways of information and knowledge to students in China and perhaps around the world. My name is Antonio Reyes, and I started an education company based here out of Cambridge to provide a more common interface between Harvard, now MIT, and other universities for students who are in need of accessing these great centers of elite and premier education that may not be able to run the normal gateway, like apply to college and attend here for 4 years when they find a great scholarship through Tomer's program and are able to gain the TOEFL access. So for those who can't do those things, we create those programs for them here. One of the things that all of you face, whether they are able to pay or not pay on scholarship, is the pedagogy. And I'm really curious as to how you have addressed the educational philosophies that when our students come to our programs, what they want is that American pedagogy. They want to experience that Socratic and interactive method. How do your online programs, how do the test-taking supports and perhaps even counseling deal with the pedagogy and the difference between the two cultures?
Can I use my position as moderator, because this is my business, and I think that we are just at the beginning of understanding how technology can do this. We don't know very well. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of, I think, movement from face-to-face to just put it online. My own feeling is that we'll now get to the next stage of doing it better using the technological capabilities. And so actually I invite any and all of you who are interested in this to think hard about how technology can be used to move the pedagogy and to do research in this area, because we desperately need the research as well. So I would invite my other colleagues on the panel to talk about it, but I just couldn't resist putting my 2 cents in.
I'll just talk about it from an English language assessment perspective. I think when it comes to pedagogy, as Lori mentioned, it is a huge challenge out there for all educators.
I don't think, Gary, that you're...
Oh, okay. But there's 2 things that are important in thinking about this in the context of using internet or technology. One is the objective of why you're teaching or why you're educating, why you're learning, and ultimately why you're therefore being assessed. And then the next part is actually collecting all of this different objectives into a place that can be either searchable or sortable or distributable. And I think what the current technology and the things that are coming in the future allows us to do is not only have a platform where the objectives for education and learning can be stored and shared, but also where, as a result, the professionals, whether that's a university professor or high school or whatever teacher from K through 12, can actually then put their input into what their curriculum or pedagogy might be. And so I think you're going to very quickly, in the next couple of years, if not in the next 5 to 10 years, see a use case where the internet is used as a way to both collect and organize information and actually distribute that information in a systematic way. And all of this has to work together with assessment as well as learning across the board.
Okay. I would like to share two opinions with you, may be helpful. The first thing is that from our side, we think in China there are three kinds of model in online education. Thank you. Thank you. Online education. The first is a platform, just like maybe 一起作业 is a platform, maybe, and others just like 跟谁学. It's a brand new platform, very big, and something like this. The platform is just one side is teachers, the other side is students, and they connect them together. The second kind of model is we call it content. We provide some content to the students. We found now in China we really need some good content. You know, the first we know we could cut the course to a little piece, 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Just the first thing. The second thing is, you know, some teachers and teachers do the curriculum themselves and teach students themselves. Actually, online course, I think it's maybe 2 roles. We don't have to combine them together. Maybe, actually, my students, they are grade 11 or 12. They like beautiful girls and handsome boys than me, right? Yeah. So I think maybe it's different. The third is that, you know, traditional class were 40 minutes or maybe 45 minutes, and online course just 3 or 4 minutes. That means we need to reorganize our materials. In the traditional course, we should try to deliver a whole concept to the students. But online, we don't need to do that. We just need a hook, keep it interesting, keep students feel interesting. That's enough. So I think we really need good content. But now in China, I don't think there are good content, right? The third model we call assessment, just like the INF, some parts, and the 一起作业网. You know, the individualized education is very powerful. Now in China, the number of students equal the number of the US. But most of the students just learn in the same way, in the same standards. They need individualized education. But what can do that? Computer, internet can analyze the big data and give them a good solution. So I think there's 3 kinds of model. The first kind of model need a lot of resources, money, people, and something like this. It's hard. The second model is not very hard. Even a small company can do some excellent content, right? The third model is in the middle. We need some money, some people, not so huge, but not so simple like content. There's 3 kinds of model. This I would like to share with you the first thing. The second thing is that I think the culture is so different in China and in US. For example, my A-round investor is Xue Da. He is listed in NYSE. Now he runs the biggest O2O model in China. They have 150,000 students per year, give them the individualized education for them. And they have a website platform and app and test the students and give tailored course to the students. But we found that it's not so work in K-12. It's not so work. In China, students not so motivated to try to learn something. They try to play. They don't like it. They hate, including me. We hate learning something.
Yuan, I
students,
noticed that
from
there are
teachers.
huge lines here. So, and I also noticed that it's 10 after and it's lunchtime. So I'm going to ask for one more question, and then the rest of you, I think we can stay and answer your questions individually if you come up to the panel. But you've been waiting very patiently, so if I can ask you to give us your question.
Thank you for your opportunity. My name is Isabel Ren. My husband and I founded Loveducator LLC a month ago. We are bringing a reading pen and talking books to America. We're on the early stage. I have a question for Duan Xiao. So how do you get your first investments and the following up capitals? Because you're a very successful companies and it's very impressive to hear your work.
and I realized this could be a whole class, if I could ask you to just answer very briefly, and then, of course, there's the opportunity to come up and talk individually with him.
Yes, I'll make it very brief, since it's a specific question, so we can discuss later on. It's about how to receive investment at an early stage. And I think it's very much like educating a child. There are two components. One is the human component. Our angel investors, Bob Xu and Victor Wang, were my friends for about 5 to 6 years before I got money from them. So we've known each other quite well, and Tomer mentioned the word trust. I think that was very important. The second component is the skills component. I was among the first iOS developers of education apps since 2008. So before I received an angel investment from them, I already had 3 years of experience in internet education, which was still quite an early industry at the time. And I told them a story that kind of convinced them that my team and I would probably be able to execute what we have told them. So I think these two are the most crucial factors to receive investment at an early stage.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
So again, I want to thank all of you for joining us. I want to thank the panelists again for sharing their expertise. And please, if you would like to talk to us, feel free to come forward.